What it is, Witcher fans, Peace and Grease here, and I wanted to ask the question. At the conclusion of The Witcher 3, where do we go with the next Witcher game and or trilogy? What happens? Now, I know CDPR has talked about another Witcher game, but the big question is, how do we carry on from The Witcher 3? And I think that's a really important topic. Now, right before we get into this though, for those of you wondering, this is my fourth playthrough of The Witcher with all DLC. And in this particular playthrough, there's literally nothing left to do besides just wander around and you know, take care of stuff. Other than that, all the missions are done, all the quests, the whole 9 yards. Actually, there's only 2 quests left, and it's the 2 quests that continually bug out every time, which is going to be Hard Times and the last exploits of Selena's gang. I claimed the treasure at the hidden cemetery and didn't complete. And Hard Times, there's no option to give that letter to the smith at Kaer Trolde, so that's not an option. So here I am, an empty, vacant, very haunting Kaer Morhen, sadly. I don't know why, but it always, at the end of the main quest, I come back to Kaer Morhen and I'm just bummed out because I know there's nobody left to tend to it, nobody left to take care of it. And it won't take too long before Kaer Morhen is reduced to a pile of rubble in the valley, like all the rest of the buildings, all the rest of the structures in this valley. Breaks my heart. Anyway, Witcher 3 is bar none my absolute favorite game of all time. Thus far, nothing has even come close. And I used to be a big Mass Effect fan, mind you. I still am a fan of Mass Effect, but my belief in BioWare has wavered. I hope I'm wrong. We'll have to see with the next Dragon Age game, because I would really love another Mass Effect game as much as I love the Mass Effect trilogy, but only time will tell with that. But CDPR has picked up the mantle of storytelling, and I think it's an important question to ask where The Witcher goes from here. Now, I see a lot of people saying, you know, for the next Witcher game, I want to see Geralt continue. I can understand that. Love that character. Geralt's freaking awesome. I see some people saying, I want to see Ciri. I can understand that. Love that freaking character too. In fact, I can't think of a single character in the Witcher trilogy that I did not like. But the problem with this is that Geralt is not an option. CDPR has already said that his story has been told. It's complete. It's over. So Geralt is not going to be an option in the next game. That brings us to Ciri. Ciri also, her story is complete. Her story has been told. So she's not an option for the next game. Furthermore, I don't want prequels. So oh God, I cannot stand prequels. I loathe them. In general, I'll say that much. With all of those things being said, it does bring up the big question of where The Witcher goes from here. If we know that The Witcher, if we know Geralt is out of the runnings, and we know that Ciri's out of the runnings, and just in case you're curious and you're trying to argue about Ciri, just let me say this. If Ciri was going to be the next focal point in the next trilogy for The Witcher, CDPR would have to ignore a ton of player choice from The Witcher 3. Because depending on player choices, Ciri could not have made it through the White Frost. So in that regard, she's not an option for the next game. Furthermore, people's choice made her Queen of the Empire. She's not an option for the next game. The only option that would make Ciri viable for the next game would be if you made her a Witcher. But only some people did that. So you would have to ignore all these other player choices, which just wouldn't work, in my opinion. This would be similar to what I believe it was 4A Games did with Metro. Metro franchise is a great franchise. I really enjoy it. From the first game, Metro 2033, you were given the player choice of sparing and saving the Dark Ones or destroying them. And you got different endings based on those decisions. But in the second Metro game, Metro 2034, because of the book fans who cried foul because it wasn't, air quotes, canon, 4A Games completely erased player choice in the first game. Completely destroyed it. and made everyone start off in the same point at 2034. I cannot tell you how much I loathed this. In fact, the first time I started playing the second Metro game, 2034, once I realized they had completely removed the choices that I had made in 2033, I had completely shut the game down and went and did something else. I couldn't stand it. It bugged me that much. Now, at this point, you're probably asking the question, well, hell, Peace, if we can't use Ciri and we can't use Geralt, who do we use? Do we use Lambert? Do we use Eskel? Well, I think that some of the characters definitely need to make a cameo in the next game. I mean, that's just obvious. That has to be done. But then who's going to be the main focal point? Who's going to be the main character that we're going to follow? And I think the best way to go about this is to look at the conjunction of spheres. Now, if you're not aware of it, the conjunction of spheres is how monsters and magic came to this realm to start with. And thus, the Witchers were created. Now, as a result, obviously the monsters have started to die down, and so has the Witchers. It's really kind of interesting to me how the Witcher's fate is really tied to monsters' fate. The monsters go away, the Witchers go away. It's really fascinating. But anyway, that's a topic for a different day. But there was a second conjunction of spheres, is what I'm getting at. Now, most of you, if you're not aware of what I'm referring to, at the end, without giving away too much or spoiling the game for those of you that are getting into playing it, I'll simply say that at the end of the main quest of Witcher 3, there was a second conjunction of spheres. So you now have a fresh crop of monsters. What I would personally like to see is a reopening of some of the Witcher schools. So, with that said, I think that would make a really interesting kind of pick up and go for the next Witcher franchise, Witcher trilogy, I should say. So, you get to pick your character, pick their school. For example, they reopen the School of the Wolf, the School of the Cat. I don't know if they don't reopen the School of the Viper, but then you could have like the Order of the Witchers. You could have the Griffin, School of the Griffin, Bear, Manticore, Crane. The Witcher of the Crane School is something I would be really interested in hearing more about if that was an option. But they reopen these Witcher schools and they start, pushing out some new Witchers. Not a ton, right? Just enough to deal with the current batch of monster menaces that we have. As a result, we get to pick our own Witcher. We get to maybe name them, maybe pick the order, the school that they're with, maybe some of the abilities that they have, some new abilities than what we're used to with Geralt, for example. And in that way, we complete our training at whatever location that we're at, whatever school that we choose. And as a result, we start off on the path. And that's kind of the start. The first new Witcher game would be the start of the story of the new Witchers, right? There could even potentially be a little bit of Witcher kind of co-op in there. Maybe CDPR releases, I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing some ideas out there, but if you can imagine maybe a massive monster from the second conjunction of spheres that occurred, and you need more Witchers than that, so you have to recruit a team of fellow player character Witchers, and then you have to take down the monster together, almost like a raid. That would be a hell of a lot of fun. Obviously, I don't want that to be the main focal point of the next series of Witcher games, but I think it would be a fun little kind of add-in. But obviously in the solo play of The Witcher, you could have cameos from the original characters. Eskel, Lambert, maybe they help you along the path. Maybe you run into a monster that nearly kills your player character, and Eskel and Lambert come along and they kind of help you out on the path. Maybe you run into, Zoltan. Maybe you run into Dandelion. Maybe you run into some of these characters from the original Witcher trilogy, and I think that would be freaking fantastic. But obviously, in my opinion, I think this is the best possible scenario for another Witcher IP. At least in my opinion, obviously. But let me know what you guys and gals think. down in the comment section. And until next time, peace and grease.